Yeah, welcome to week 2 of the Coaches IDP Studs and Rankings podcast. Um, Want to share with you, we talked a little bit last week about some guys that were ranked in the upper tiers of their positions. And we had some outstanding play this weekend with just some D line play, some linebacker play, and we had a few guys with interceptions in the defensive backfield who stood out. So I want to go over some names with you. Fantasy wise, some of these guys that play the IDP, they're looking for the diamonds in the rough. And there were a lot of rookies that played this weekend who really stood out to me. Christian Gonzalez from the New England Patriots had an outstanding game. Um, Brian Branch for the Detroit Lions had an interception, took it to the house for the Detroit Lions on Thursday night. And Trent McDuffie, who is with Kansas City Chiefs, is probably a must-add in any fantasy IDP league that you have. Um, some of the guys that really stood out, fantasy score-wise, point-wise, um, obviously T.J. Watt. He had 28.7, points in a PPR league. Really stood out. He had 5 total tackles. He had 5 quarterback hurries, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble return. So, his point total really skyrocketed, um, which is not a surprise on a player like TJ Watt. One guy that really stood out and made a huge impact, with the Indianapolis Colts, DeForest Buckner. I had him in my rankings, but he's moved up this week simply off of the performance that he put out. 22.6 uh, fantasy points. He had 7 total tackles, tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, a sack. He also had a forced fumble and a fumble return for a touchdown. So, anytime that you can get, especially from a defensive lineman, get a score with a touchdown, that's huge for your IDP leagues. Josh Allen, uh, outside linebacker, defensive end for Jacksonville. He had 10 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, and 3 sacks, and seemed like he was in the backfield a lot, um, creating havoc, and came up with a big sacks at the right time. Defensive back wise, Jesse Bates. I mean, this probably is not a surprise. He had 18.5 um, fantasy points, but he had 10 tackles. Um, he had 2 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, and a fumble return, or forced fumble, I should say. Um, Really a great effort. Going to Atlanta from Cincinnati, he's going to help solidify that defensive backfield, and you can almost count on him every week to get you some really good points for your IDP fantasy leagues. Roquan Smith, Baltimore Ravens linebacker, 16 total tackles, 2 for loss, quarterback hurry, and a sack. Just a consistent player. Had 18.1 fantasy points this week. Um, just very consistent, always around the football and always making plays. Another one in the backfield, Antone Winfield Jr., safety. He had 8 total tackles, 2 quarterback hurries, a sack, pass deflection, forced fumble, and a fumble return. For 18 points in an IDP league. It's interesting. The success that teams have defensively when your tackle leader is a defensive back and not a linebacker or a defensive lineman. Sometimes that's misleading, depending on how they play them, up close to the ball, or if they play them deep and teams are just running or making plays, and where the backfield has to make all the stops. Jermaine Pratt, linebacker, Cincinnati, 17.7 points, 11 total tackles. He had 2 tackles for a loss, quarterback hurry, had a sack, and had a forced fumble. He again with 17.7 points, it really became obvious that he's going to be a big hitter for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. Someone I had slipped up into my rankings because of past history defensively, thought that it's his time now to be the leader of the Indianapolis Colts linebacker core, and Zaire Franklin had 17.5 IDP points, 17 total tackles, had a pass deflection, had a forced fumble. And his forced fumble was the one that the play kind of stopped a little bit, and he came up, knocked the ball loose, and that's where DeForest Buckner's touchdown came from. So got to play through the whistle. Got to make sure that you're, continuing to play and know what's going on there. So, but that was a good heads-up play, and I think it put the Colts ahead at that point. Just being a headsy player and making good plays. Drake Jackson, defensive lineman, San Francisco. Stats, stat-wise, he had some pretty good stats, but he was just an absolute force in the middle, drew double teams all the time, freed up a lot of his defensive line guys and also the linebacker crew, where, they were able to blitz, they were able to come off the edge. Just created a huge mismatch for the Pittsburgh Steelers up front. Drake Jackson had 3 total tackles, 2 were for a loss. He had 3 quarterback hurries, and he had 3 sacks. So, he's, a name that you want to kind of put in the back of your mind and, make sure you're keeping an eye on him. Not a big name guy, but looks like he's on his way to becoming one. He had 16 points as an IDP fantasy player. Brian Burns, outside linebacker, defensive end, more of a, I believe, defensive end stand-up guy, had 15.95 IDP points, 7 total tackles, 1 for a loss, quarterback hurry, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. And there's kind of a theme here with the defensive tackles and defensive linemen that they're really getting after the football. One's wrapping up the ball carrier, the other one's punching the ball out, or, we're swiping down and getting the ball out as we're making the tackle. So a lot of forced fumbles. That could be early in the season, quarterbacks and running backs not hanging on to the football properly. You never know. They're professionals. They're obviously good at what they do. But, it's just kind of interesting to see that the defensive linemen are having that kind of success in week 1, punching the ball out. So, Amani Hooker, defensive back, Tennessee, had 15 IDP points for fantasy. Had 4 total tackles, had 1 for a loss, 2 pass breakups, an interception, forced fumble, and a fumble return. So again, we're swiping at the ball, whether we're, a defensive back, defensive lineman, linebacker, we're causing havoc. And that's what I really like about the defensive side. Everybody has their sayings about championships are won on the defensive side, but I think that's true to a certain point. But if you've got an offense that's also going to score a lot of points for you, It goes hand in hand and works out pretty well for everybody. Deron Bland, cornerback, Dallas, also had 15 IDP points. He was one that had a really good Sunday night game. He was around the ball a lot. He had 3 total tackles, one behind the line as a corner, quarterback hurry, pass deflection, interception, and he had a touchdown. So, taking the interception back for 6 points really will help your fantasy team scoring on the defensive side, like we talked about before. Derek Brown, he playing for Carolina, 14.3 IDP points for your fantasy league, 8 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, quarterback hurry, and a sack. Really good player, steady player. I remember when he came out of Alabama or out of Auburn. Apologize to all the Auburn fans. He just was a solid player up front, and you could tell that he was going to have a good career in the NFL just by the way his motor works and how he stayed in the games and plays that went away from him. He didn't just stop his feet. He kept playing. So it's someone that is going to be consistent points for your team. So that's another name you want to kind of put in the back of your mind and keep an eye on as we go. And then we're going to finish up here with Bobby Wagner, linebacker, Seattle, 18 total tackles and a tackle for loss. Just continues to do it. Seattle let him go a few years back. He played, I think, with the Rams for a year. May have played for another team for a year, and then his home. He came back to Seattle, and again he's really striving to be what Seattle needs from their linebackers and their defense. They're obviously wanting to get back to the what they used to call the doomsday defense or whatever they called that before, and I think once their offense catches up with their defense, I think Seattle's going to make a good run out there in the West. So let's go through my top 3 guys for each position. These guys are going to obviously move up in the rankings, which were posted today. They were done yesterday, but I think they posted today, this morning, on our Facebook page for Fantasy Holics. Defensive line from week 1, moving up quite a bit is defensive end Josh Allen. Putting that kind of points up, 20.3, making plays, consistent plays. I think he's, really in line for a tremendous year. We talked a little bit about defensive tackle DeForest Buckner from Indianapolis, 7 tackles and a sack, and also a touchdown there, and again, scoring from the defensive line position on your IDP teams, that's huge. That's huge points for your team, and obviously in the real world, NFL teams, if they can get a score from their defensive side, that's a huge bonus for them also. And then again, we talked about the one of the 2 names to kind of keep in mind, defensive tackle Drake Jackson. San Francisco, 3 sacks, 3 tackles, had some hurries, really was dominant up front for San Francisco, and he ended up with 16 IDP points. One note, obviously, Kansas City had struggled stopping the run on Thursday night against Detroit. Their running backs for Detroit kind of went off and made a big difference in that game. So Kansas City went out, hurried, made sure that they got Chris Jones signed up for one more year. Um, this individual's 6'6" and 270 some pounds. Wingspan like a jet airliner. He's going to make a huge difference for the Chiefs going forward. Quickly the top three linebackers. Probably not any surprise off the rankings, but Bobby Wagner, with 19 tackles, I believe he had 9 solos and he was involved in 10 assists. But just having a nose for the ball and being around the football all the time is huge. And knowing that you've got a leader like that on your defense makes a huge difference for all the young guys that are surrounded around him. Linebacker Roquan Smith, Baltimore, 16 tackles, 1 sack, 18.1, fantasy points on the IDP side. What can you say? I mean, he's consistent as can be, and he was consistent in Chicago, and now that he's with Baltimore for his second year, I believe, he's just as consistent as he was the day he walked on the field in the NFL. And then the one that will move up this week, and you'll see, is Zaire Franklin, linebacker, Indianapolis. I thought he had a really good, outstanding performance for the Colts and taking over that middle inside linebacker's position to where he can cover the flat area, can cover the curl, hook, get down the seam with a tight end, but also a run stopper big time. So look for Zaire Franklin to move up quite a bit this week in the rankings. And I just want you to keep your eye on linebacker Jalen Phillips from Miami. Had a really nice weekend. Made some really good plays from his outside linebacker position. He's in his third year playing for the Dolphins, and I believe he came from the Miami Hurricanes in college. But this young man's got a huge upside. So it's someone that we want to definitely keep our eye on. And I picked him up in one of my leagues. I couldn't let him sit out there on a waiver wire. So I added him to my team and looking for big things from him. That's Jalen Phillips from Miami, linebacker. And then we'll finish up with the defensive backs here. Obviously Jesse Bates with Atlanta now. 2 interceptions, 10 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 18.5 points. Just creates havoc. I mean, anytime that a quarterback's throwing the football against Atlanta, there's a chance that Jesse Bates is going to be around there and make a play on that on the ball. So just understanding that he is that good. He's a little bit older in the league, but he knows all the tricks and trades of things that some of these offenses are trying to do, and he's a really good role model for the rest of their younger secondary. So, Jesse Bates had a great weekend for the Atlanta Falcons. Defensive back Antoine Winfield, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and a fumble return. 18 points. Again, he, the bloodline is really good there. Dad played in the NFL. He was a huge player in the Big Ten for Minnesota. Comes into the league and doesn't miss a beat. So he's been in the league probably 3 to 4 years now, possibly, and has been a dominant force every year that he's played. So he will move up this week. And our defensive back rankings. Amani Hooker, we talked about him a little bit with Tennessee Titans. 4 tackles, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble return, 15 IDP points. This is someone that I'll be honest, I didn't know much about, and I had to go back and look and research. And he's a young man who's made a lot of strides and works extremely hard at his trade, and has caught the eye of Mike Vrabel, head coach for the Tennessee Titans, and obviously his defenses are always going to be good. So that's a name we want to keep an eye on, Amani Hooker for Tennessee. And lastly, I want to close out with one of my sleepers. If you're a big college guy, you know this guy, but if you're just an NFL guy and you're looking for someone that's going to be consistent from year to year and make an impact in the defensive backfield, I would definitely take a chance on defensive back Brian Branch of Detroit Lions. He's out of Alabama, and 3-year starter, I believe, possibly a 4-year starter for Alabama, and definitely can make some plays and score a lot of points for you on the defensive side. So, again, a lot of guys are going to move up this week. Some guys are going to drop. Look for Chris Jones to move up into the top, 12 guys. Obviously we're going off of what he can do and has done. But we definitely want to see him on the field. He makes the Chiefs that much better, and makes the NFL that much better. So, again, I want to thank everybody for taking time to listen to this podcast. It's my second one. I'm trying to get better as I go, and I appreciate Fantasy Holics for giving me this opportunity, and hope you have a wonderful week 2. Starts tonight, and should be a lot of really good defensive play this weekend. So, again, thank you very much, and I would appreciate a follow on Twitter at IDP_Studz, and just ask questions on there, or check out things that we post. Our crew does a fantastic job with pictures and photos and things. So have some time, take a look at that, tap follow on there, and we'll try to do this all together. I appreciate it again, and have a great weekend.